To see which dog was fit to be a guide dog, the woman called them all over. The dogs all rushed over excitedly, except for one little pup, who just stood there confused. After a few seconds, it finally trotted over slowly, then plopped down and stared blankly at the trainer. But this slow little pup was chosen as the most qualified to be a guide dog, because that calm temperament was exactly what a guide dog needed. And so, little Q left its first owner, and was flown to a guide dog training center. But the trainers didn't start training right away. Instead, they placed little Q with a foster family, because guide dogs need to feel loved as puppies, in order to trust humans later in life. Little Q had a joyful childhood there, but a year passed quickly, and the day to say goodbye finally came. They walked together under the cherry blossoms for a long time, until little Q was loaded onto a van. The foster parents tried to stay strong, but as the car drove off, they couldn't help but run after it. They finally stopped at the corner, waving goodbye, knowing little Q had a greater mission ahead. This was little Q's second goodbye. Then came the training center. After a few days of basic training, the trainer assumed little Q was just average, until one day he had to leave, and told little Q to stay put. Little Q lay there waiting, for a very long time, long enough for the trainer to forget, and begin training the other dogs. That's when another dog noticed little Q still waiting. The trainer stared in disbelief. He hadn't expected little Q to show such discipline so naturally. Even more surprising was little Q's memory. During road training, it easily remembered every stair and corner. The guide dog assessment began. When the signal gun fired, the other dogs panicked, but little Q calmly sat in place, becoming the first to officially qualify as a guide dog. Maybe it was fate, but one day during training, they saw a blind man on the street. The trainer rushed up with little Q, asking the man to try walking with the dog, but he didn't believe a dog could lead him. Only after the trainer promised that a 30-minute walk could be done in 10, did he hesitantly grab the harness. First, they were totally out of sync. The man was scared of dogs, and refused to admit it. He walked stiffly, and kept double-checking every turn. He didn't trust little Q at all, but despite the hiccups, they made it to the destination in just 10 minutes. He started to see guide dogs differently, and wanted to keep little Q, but to apply officially, they had to pass the bonding test, which was tough, since both the man and the dog loved to nap, and he still didn't trust little Q. When they came to a roadblock, little Q stopped like it should, but the man insisted on walking into it, and even scolded little Q afterward. After finally completing the task, the trainer reminded him to praise the dog, but he did it with such a harsh tone. It felt more like criticism. So on graduation day, every blind person received a certificate, except for them, who sat quietly in the corner. Little Q sensed his owner's sadness, and wagged its tail to comfort him. The man was moved. From then on, he began to trust little Q bit by bit. They finally passed the final test, and that night, the man wanted to celebrate with a beer, but since he couldn't see, he kept picking the wrong drinks. When he was down to his last coin, little Q sneezed 3 times to stop him. The man hesitated, then tried the third vending machine, and sure enough, it was beer. From that day on, their teamwork only grew stronger, and soon, they graduated and went home together.